Welcome back. You're watching Metropole Business Center. Thank you for staying with us. In studio, I have the CEO, Fresh Produce Consortium of Kenya, Okisegere, Ojepat. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, so the year started, Ojepat, and you recently, together with the Kenya Flour Council, raised some concerns about the recovery plan of flowers, and in general, we're looking at the fresh produce in Kenya export. So as the year began, COVID-19 pandemic is still with us. How has been the recovery plan for this sector?
Thanks for having me, and I just want to give an assurance that we are on the right path of recovery. If the figures we recorded last year is anything to go by, where we had we brought into this country 151 billion shillings in revenue, the exports 2020. Against all odds, we beat 2019, and because at that time we had we brought in 140. So from 140 to 151 shows the resilience of our industry. And where we sit, we have a lot of markets opening up by day. We are on the I don't want to say recovery path, but we're on the right trajectory in terms of growing the sector. We have pros and cons, but our biggest concern is the taxes that government is levying our products, and the cost of freight. The cost of freight remains the single most expensive budgetary item on our costing. So if we are able to deal with cost of freight, we will see a bigger percentage in terms of growth, and we will also be able to place our products in other markets in a competitive price than it is at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking about the cost of freight, do you see an increase in the taxes, or with the COVID-19 pandemic, with the effect of it? So what does the sector want?
What we would like is an agreement where we resonate together. It is not the industry against government, and it's not government against the industry. We are one country. We are the only industry that has remained resilient over years. Each one of us needs food, and we also need to give people emotional support during this pandemic period. We are lucky. I've always said that we are placed geographically very well in the country, in the tropics. And for us in the equator, it gives us an advantage to be able to produce high quality product throughout the year. And that gives us an advantage that we are the only country that can be able to supply the market 12 months of the year, 365 days of the year, and we can grow a variety of crops. So what we are looking at here is reasonable engagement with particularly the government agencies and departments that are relevant, in ensuring that you do not kill by overtaxing, but that we are not against paying taxes, but we're saying, can we be commensurate? Two, we are looking at, and that brings us to a partnership. We have just signed a partnership, a collaboration partnership with KQ, a scenario where we're able to consolidate our products, ensure that their aircrafts go out when they're full, meaning their cost of operation will come down, and allow our products to be placed in the marketplace in a competitive place. What we want is to be able to compete competitively in the world market, because we are not competing among Kenyans. We are competing with big economies. We are competing Colombia, we're competing Brazil, we're competing Australia, we're competing producing countries in Europe, we're competing America, we're competing other economies in Africa, like South Africa, that we compete, and their systems are quite advanced, and their business acumens in terms of the cost of production and the cost of doing business is competitive. And we're saying a little tweak in our engagement and just bringing that cost to a level where we feel we can compete. Gives us an opportunity. Instead of growing by 5%, our ultimate target is to grow this industry between 10 to 12% annually for export. And remember, export is only 4% of what we produce in Kenya. So if we can be able to turn the 4 up to 10, that means double in the next 3-4 years, and then ensure that the domestic market infrastructure and systems work, that will allow us push out more, get more revenue in a competitive way, and ensure that we grab the market. The other thing we're doing in terms of why we want competitiveness is because we are now venturing into new markets. We're talking about South Korea, we're talking about Thailand, we're talking about the Far East, this negotiation. I just had a discussion this morning looking at how we get our fresh produce into India, our fresh produce into China, our fresh produce into Australia. Other than flowers, we want to see fruits, we want to see nuts, we want to see different varieties. We can only do that if we are competitive in terms of placing our product to the marketplace. And we're looking at the engagement and discussion that allow us a latitude to give comfort to our growers and the farmers in this country that, hey, when you go to the farm in the morning and farm, it is to your business is to do farming. The business of market will be handled by a marketer, and that marketer will be comfortable that they can make their little margin, so that the entire value chain, everyone is able to make a little margin that keeps them going, keep the economy going, and keep the country well fed, nutritionally and financially. And I mean, that is what the beauty of growing the world is. Then we employ technologies and innovation that are able to stimulate growth of agri. Remember, as other economies in the world look at other minerals, oil, other minerals, we're looking at the farm, and that is what we have. And I've always said the amounts that are available to eat in the world are steadily going up. The amount of available land in the world is becoming small. That means we want to see how innovation can come in, and technologies to help us. But we must get it right from the beginning, even to be able to encourage innovation and other investors to come and invest in this country. Yeah. You
speaking about the levels that can put the industry in a competitive, proper competitive advantage. Yeah. What are these levels? What are the rates you're looking at? What we're looking at here, if the partnership works well and government is willing to also put in something as we put in what we put in, and we're not asking for free money. We are saying we can account for everything that we put in. Our cost of shipping between here and Europe will vary between $1.2 to sometimes up to 2.5. The assumption is that on average, if we can get between $1 to $1.5 cutting across into the regular destinations like Europe, for example, if we are at 1.2 throughout, it means we can get into contracts, even with the markets, with confidence, because we will deliver. And our partnership is meant to then ensure that we also are able to produce more and consolidate in a more coordinated way, so that we don't have to reach at a point like it is at the moment, when the government just, every month when government changes prices on fuel, the aviation cost just goes up. And sometimes we blame the airlines, but the tax regime on aviation fuel in this country needs to be looked at. Because the more the aircrafts fly, with more cargo in, the better. Like now, KQ has been able to modify and transform and certain vessels, 2 vessels actually, to be able to purely convert them into cargo. As they convert into cargo, it means they're opening more space for us. And can you imagine if we have more space and we have a better rate? Look, between $1 and $1.5 dollars into regular markets, then that allows us to have a good startup point. At the moment, when the season is high like now, those rates go up to 2.2, 2.25. And that makes us
uncompetitive. The only advantage we have is that our products have good quality, they have good taste. We have been here for long, we know our thing, and we produce throughout the year. So certain markets want to work with us, not because they want to carry a lot, but they want to keep that relationship going. We don't want a relationship. We want a growth in business and a growth in relations that allows the Kenyan grower to be motivated to grow more, because they can either sell in the region or export at an affordable rate. That's the single most huge challenge we're having. But as I said earlier on also, then the reason why we are then partnering is we like to get into new markets, and you want to get into new markets in style, in a more coordinated way, whether we are doing one shipment a week, but we are sure that every particular day of a week we are delivering certain volumes in a certain market. We like to partner and see how we can also market and brand our country, because for too long we have allowed each one of us to brand this country in our own way. We want to brand our country in a much better coordinated way and speak about ourselves, because we have so much in this country that we talk about, but in most cases you only hear the negative part about agri and not about the positive side. So we would like to have more money in people's pockets. We would like to see the value chain actors supported, and as I said one time, that our interest is not asking money from government for free. For example, I have mentioned before that if we got a revolving fund between 5 and 10 billion, within our systems we're able to ensure that we have more money in people's hands, this working capital. Now with competitive rates, it means you have money among the growers and you have a competitive rate here. Then the government will have taxes without having to struggle. Yes, that's why we, from where I sit, that's what we're looking at here. Right. That partnership, that understanding, that innovation, and that openness to engage and find workable solution among Kenyan stakeholders, both in the public and the private sector, collapsing ourselves in a room and saying what is practical is the best thing that we can ever do. Because we don't want to look like, as I said in the beginning, we are not fighting against government, neither is government fighting against us. We work together. We all have roles and responsibility, and the business of government is to facilitate businesses to do business, and the business of businessmen is to do business in an ethical way and support the government.
Definitely.
Yep.
And Oje, for a long time, traditionally, there are certain fresh produce that Kenya is known for exporting, and yet Kenya grows a lot of fresh produce. What's the setback? Why aren't we seeing a lot more of exports? What's the setback?
A few challenges. One, before you place a product in the market, there is something called a pest risk assessment, routine and phytosanitary issue that is agreed between country to country. That is not in the hands of the private sector. That is squarely in the hands of government, because it's government by government. We place our wish and a request to government. Let me use an example here. In 2016, Kenya went and successfully signed an SPS agreement with Korea on bananas and broccoli, and agreed on bananas that first of all we didn't have. The government went ahead and opened market for bananas, which we don't have ourselves. We're importing bananas. So we needed to know which banana variety are we talking about. Are we sure we are going to produce it or not? We went bargaining about broccoli. If I asked you, Vicky, today, how many Kenyans grow broccoli?
Do they even know it?
So why do you go and discuss about broccoli? Why don't you go and discuss about avocado? Why don't you go and discuss about chilies? Why don't you go there and discuss about maize and beans and sweet potato and what I would call today potatoes, because I don't want to call them the names that are being called in the marketplace, because we used to call Irish potato, now there's Dutch potato. For now I've decided, sorry, I'll call it potato. Generally. And then for, why don't we talk about African leafy vegetables? What we produce, why can't we be talking about mango? Why can't we be talking about passion? Why can't we be talking about cassava? Why can't we be talking about nuts? can't we be talking about so many other things that we produce, including arrowroots? Why can't we be talking about those things that are easily grown by every Kenyan? We were negotiating broccoli. Thank you, you've negotiated. So how much have we sold from 2016? It's 1,200 kilos. Sold by an individual exporter who went on their own way. We went discussing about bananas. We have sold 0 bananas as we talk. So we later in the course of the year, we will travel to Korea, and we are now working very, very well with the embassy, led by Ambassador Manemwinzi in Seoul, looking at how we can prioritize and relook at the list that we need to, so that we can be able to use the certain parameters to open the market. So if those priorities are not put in place and government has not negotiated with other governments, the private sector can't go. But as soon as government, like now what they are doing, which I'm happy, a change in the government attitude, is they're now calling us in the room and saying, what are the priority crops? That never used to happen. And perhaps that is the reason why we have negotiated deals that government officials know than we do. And yet government has no products to sell. It is us who have a product to sell. The things are changing now. Government is asking us, what do you want to sell and where are you looking at? And with that now, we can see a bit of movement towards the right direction. Of course, the wheels of government move quite slow than the wheels of private sector. Nevertheless, we appreciate the government way of doing things. But I also want to say, there are certain things that do not need to wait. They just need to be prioritized. And once it's prioritized, I'm sure every government, once something has been prioritized, all our energies will go there. And we may turn around what needs to be done in 2 years within 3 months. So that's where the challenge has been, negotiating things that did not make sense to the private sector.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about the flower sector now. And I understand Australia had some conditions.
Yeah.
Is Kenya ready now to export in Australia with the fumigation?
Unfortunately, I think in this very studio, I have said government has let us down. The private sector can do literally everything until the government of the day endorses that this is an agreed position as Kenya. The private sector hands are tied on issues phytosanitary, on issues protocol country by country. We have since seen some light in the tunnel. We have since heard from KEFIS telling us now they have a protocol that they want us to approve. But for us, it's still as good as a paper, because papers don't move. It is products and people that move. So until it's actualized and flagged out and Australians endorse and say we agree with it, we'll go with it. But we're also happy that now KEFIS has new leadership, and we hope that the new leader there will be proactive enough to work. And I know that they've reached out to us for a discussion, and we kept saying, listen, are we going to be part of the meetings every day? No. Us from the private sector, we're looking at action, and let's talk. So what we have done then is discuss with Australians, discuss with KEFIS, and hopefully within this quarter, this annual quarter, we should be able to have something flashed out in terms of the protocol, and just give hope to the flower industry. And not just the flower industry, the entire fresh produce industry. Because what happens, Vicky, is normally, what happens normally is when you have one country impose certain requirements, the other countries follow. So we need to be clear on that. So we should be done in the next quarter, within this quarter, by end of March. Unless something abnormal happens, we will be on. But we're still exporting, and there's a new requirement, not a new requirement, there's a new market opening up. They are also asking for other products other than just flowers. They're looking for fruits. They're asking for nuts. And for us, it's an opportunity because they're sourcing from all over. So we are packaged and we're ready. We're set. We believe, I strongly believe 2020 was the best year, and this pandemic was the best thing that ever happened to some of us, because certain things have moved. Of course, people are suffering. Of course, we're all struggling with these masks and everything. But on the flip chart, the flip side of these things have moved. And if we maintain that tempo and maintain that speed, it means that we will be able to close it. But I can tell you for free, if Kenya continues with the notion and emotions and the speed we are moving at, perhaps we may be trailing the rest of the world 30, 50 years behind. Yeah.
All right. And as we finish this, OJ, the year has just begun. What are your plans?
We are looking at growth between 10 and 12% of the horticulture industry come 2022, January, first week of January, we should be able to report double digits. All factors held constant, and therefore we want to motivate the world, the country, that listen, there's no turning back. We are determined. Those who are following us and watching what's happening, we have started on the bank. We are opening Kisumu Airport, a railway and a seaport within Kisumu this year. We are opening Eldoret and seeing how shipments will be moving from Eldoret into the world. Currently we have flights coming into Eldoret, but they are going empty. So in the next few weeks we're going to Eldoret. We are getting Eldoret sorted so that we can have necessary infrastructure to start business from there. Mombasa is already open, and we're happy that there are scheduled flights that are now going out of Mombasa. And lastly, we're looking at opening up Isiolo and Isiolo Airport and see how we can move cargo so that people from every region can be able to move to the nearest airport, have their cargo airlifted, perhaps to a consolidation point or straight into the international market. So things look positive. There has never been a best time to be in farming than now. That's my encouragement. And as long as there's childbirth, they will be eating. And as long as it's eating, there must be a farmer. Definitely. And therefore there's hope.
Definitely. In Isiolo, what product are you looking at?
Isiolo, we're looking at beans and peas around about Mount Kenya region, Nanyuki area, Meru area. I don't want to talk about Miraa because it's not in my biggest interest, but there's a lot of fruits, vegetable that are grown in Meru and Mount Kenya region. Instead of pushing all that into Nairobi, why not take it to Isiolo, which is a few kilometers away, 50, 100 kilometers around about that. And also open up the new irrigation schemes on that area. So we purely open. And look at the flowers that are around Nanyuki area, Timau area. Those flowers should be able to go down. And as I said again, it could start as a pickup point and then consolidate in one bigger airport. And I think I also need to say that we're now shipping through flowers through sea. There's now flower shipments through the sea, and the technology around is now supporting us. We're able to ship flowers within 3 weeks and place to the market through the sea, and we are seeing the price coming down by more than about 50% savings. Although now the process is slow, but the technology we have is available to allow that happen. So the bigger plan is we must just grow the industry by between 10 to 12% this year, and we are opening up those ports of exits to ensure that more exports happen. Locally, we are going to ensure that the domestic market space and systems work starting now.
All right. Yep. Thank you so much, OJ. Thank you for making time for us. That is Okisegere Ojepat, the CEO, Fresh Produce Consortium of Kenya, speaking to us on diverse issues about the recovery plan on the industry. Always a pleasure to have you in studio. We'll definitely be talking about much more on about the industry in the future.
Appreciate. Thanks for having us. Cool. Always a pleasure coming to just share. Then if we're available to share what we're able to share, let the country know what's happening.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
You.
We take a short break, and when you come back, we have a lot more planned for you in the show.